Hello YouTube. This is Thomas Judge back once again. I feel a little bit sad that we've now reached the final instalment of my Ultimate New 52 reading guide series. When I started this guide, when I read the 3,646 issues that comprise the New 52, I never intended to make a reading guide for anyone else. I definitely didn't intend to put it on YouTube. However, here we are, 30 videos, and now up to video 14.1, which I've called Connective Issues and Overall Thoughts. As usual, I would recommend that you go back and watch the introductory video for this series, and the link to that is in the description below. But with no further ado, here is the last part of my Ultimate New 52 reading guide. Over the last 30 videos, we've actually dived through every single part of this map. You probably remember the first time you saw this, you probably thought it was a bit crazy, a bit intimidating, a bit too much. Well, we've covered all of it now. It's taken a while, and now the final part, the only part that is left to cover, is actually here. It's near the section that we've been playing around with a little bit already. Between Batman and Green Lantern, we have a short, small section, which you'll notice here in these gold circles. It's easy to miss. But this is what we're going to be talking about today. So, let's just zoom in and see what it looks like. So this is just north of Green Lantern. In fact, just north of Blue Beetle. So this series is called DC Universe Presents. It ran from 2011 to 2013. And before we begin, I just need to point out one important thing for any British viewers. DC Universe Presents was the name of part of the UK's collector's edition line of DC comics published by Titan magazines. I'm showing that here. This was originally titled Superman Legends and was published alongside Batman Legends. You'd get it in newsagents and W.S. Smith and places like that. The book was retitled as DC Universe Presents at issue 33. That means that this UK series you can see here has nothing to do with the one we're talking about on the map today. So in case you see that somewhere in a shop or in a bargain bin or something, and you think, oh, that's New 52, it's not. Just keep in mind, these UK anthologies might be lying around anywhere, but they have nothing to do with the New 52. And now, back to the map. The New 52 series was called the DC Universe Presents. It's an anthology type of series that was meant to introduce characters and concepts into the rebooted universe. Right now we're looking at volume 1, which is called Dead Man and the Challenges of the Unknown. That contains issues 1 to 8. If we continue up and along that line, we get to volume 2, which is just called Vandal Savage. It contains issues 9 to 12, issue 0, and backups from Teen Titans 11 and 12. Whilst the Vandal Savage issues of 9 to 11 and the issue 0, which is about OMAC, are totally readable here, issue 12 is a story about Kid Flash that absolutely needs the Teen Titans backups. In other words, if you read this or you're reading this in single issues like I did, then you will need the Teen Titans issue to make any sense of that Kid Flash one in issue 12. Continuing on, we get to here, and what we have here is volume 3. This is called Black Lightning and the Blue Devil. Contains issues 13 to 19. So Black Lightning and the Blue Devil are actually only in issues 13 to 16. Issue 17 is about Arsenal. Issue 18 is about Starfire. Issue 19, by the way, continues the story of Beowulf, which was in the backups of the Sword and Sorcery series we discussed in video 8.2 during the Dark family of comics. Really just so good. If you remember that video, I did say Beowulf was one of the best comics I've read in the last decade, and this single issue again just highlights the fact we should have had a series of this. Well, you'll notice that line continues on, and it continues on actually to a different series, because DC Universe Presents was cancelled and then replaced by this. This is a series called Secret Origins that ran from 2014 to 2015. Secret Origins is a modern rebooted series of the original Secret Origins series from 1986 to 1990. And as such, both are essentially anthology series containing multiple short stories in each issue on different DC characters. Volume 1, you can see here, contains issues 1 to 4. And just as we skirt over here, we will see Volume 2, with this very distinctive cover, contains issues 5 to 11. Now, remember that each issue of this series is comprised of 3 or 4 short stories between 6 to 8 pages long about different random characters. I've got a list of that here. I'm going to leave this on screen for a second, but whilst that's up there, I just want you to know that if you pick up the trade collections of any new 52 stories, from Batwoman to Supergirl to Green Lantern, do not be surprised to see excerpts from Secret Origins issues shoved in randomly all over the place. So any given trade collection might contain the Secret Origins backup story from a random Secret Origins issue within these 2 volumes we've just discussed, and that will just be inserted as and when it seems suitable. I've not mentioned them in any of my videos before, as it would really confuse the situation. But if you read the stories in single issues as I've done, then you won't even notice the Secret Origins excerpts aren't included. If you read the trade collections, you'll find the occasional excerpt here and there. So back to the map. This is Secret Origins Volume 2, which is, ladies and gentlemen, the very last part of the New 52 that we need to cover. The line doesn't continue on anywhere. This doesn't go anywhere. That one single golden thread just tucked in there between the Goofy and Green Lanterns, that was the last series. We have covered all of it, and there, as I slowly pan out, is the entire map. And that is that. The end of our New 52 Ultimate Reading Guide. As always, please like, comment, subscribe, and I'm only messing. Of course I wasn't going to end it like that. Firstly, shout outs and thank yous. I just want to thank everyone who has commented and tweeted me with supportive comments, helpful corrections, and interesting points of view. It really makes all the difference on a project like this. To see that other people share my interest and perspective on a reading order has been great. Thanks everyone. These videos are for fans like you. I've got the names of some of the regular long-term commenters and subscribers up on the screen here, and thank you all so much. On that note, there is a long-standing law of the internet that if you want to know the answer to something, there's no point asking a question on the internet. Instead, if you want to know the answer to something, then you need to say what you think on the internet, and someone will immediately correct you. As such, I have a few small errors and improvements to my reading order that people have pointed out, and I wanted to summarise here. Firstly, my reading order for Forever Evil Blight contained a typo. I had Justice League Dark issue 28 on there twice, and it actually should have been Justice League Dark issue 29 the second time as the final issue for that reading order. Secondly, the New 52 Batgirl series is available in hardcovers for Gail Simone's run, and then paperbacks for the 3 remaining Batgirl of Burnside volumes. What I didn't realise was that the first Batgirl of Burnside volume, so volume 6 of this series but with a number 1 on the spine, is also available as a hardcover. I didn't realise that. The 2 that follow it are only paperback, but I didn't realise this one was again a bit of a weird anomaly. Next is Batwoman. Batwoman issue 0 is not collected in 2 volumes as I had originally thought. I assumed it was in both volume 1 and volume 3 of Batwoman. However, I have spent days tracking down the physical versions of these trade collections, and I can now 100% confirm that the issue 0 in volume 1 was in fact a standalone issue from just before the New 52 era. Next, it turns out that the Green Arrow issues written by Jeff Lemire are collected in their own deluxe hardcover. I had previously believed that there were only 3 deluxe editions during the New 52 era. Those would have been Superman Unchained, Swamp Thing and Dial H, but it now seems there is a 4th. I may have to reread this series now. I always quite liked it before, so will the new format tip me over into buying it in the collected volume? Only time will tell. And the final correction I want to make here, video 12.1 has an awkward lag for the first 5 minutes. For the last 5 minutes or so of the video, from about the 11.5 minute point onwards. Apologies for that. It's an exporting issue when I uploaded it to YouTube, and I guess it's a learning experience for next time. I'm also just throwing up a list on screen here of all the events where I provide reading orders and which videos those reading orders can be found in. Just whilst that's up, I just want to point out that a few people did reach out to me to provide corrections to those reading orders. Whilst I appreciate that, I nonetheless didn't agree with them. And that's because these reading orders aren't for the events, they're for the event books. As such, what I mean by that is that I read these in singles, hopefully you are too, and the lists that I've used throughout this series are just for the issues that the crossover event books physically contain. In the case of the 3 that have an asterisk next to them, these are crossover events which I've called false crossovers, where no book was ever released but should have been, so I'm just making an educated guess. However, what that means is that my Forever Evil Blight reading order doesn't contain the entire Forever Evil event, or even necessarily every issue that should be in the Forever Evil Blight crossover. It just shows you all the ones that are in the physical Forever Evil Blight volume you could order off Amazon. Similarly, my Batman Zero Year order doesn't contain every single issue from Batman Zero Year. It just contains the issues in the 0 Year event book. Like I've always said, if you want a perfect issue by issue rundown or the perfect chronological reading order, you're a type P reader and you need to go on Reddit. In fact, I saw a thread on Reddit here where someone is trying to assemble the perfect Batman reading order in chronological order of events. That's the in-universe chronology. So in other words, issues where Bruce Wayne trains to Year 1, to 0 Year, to a load of pre-New 52 stuff, to Court of Owls, and so on. Even to the extent of trying to put flashback issues in their correct places, so they're not flashbacks, but they're just events in sequence. I cannot imagine anything more tedious or jarring. Jumping around from issue to issue, from volume to volume, from creative team in one decade to creative team in another, you're not experiencing things the way that the comic writers and artists want it to be experienced. Flashbacks are meant to be experienced as flashbacks for a reason. But hey, to each their own. This is what I've always referred to as a type P reading style, and if that's your thing, that's great. But this reading guide is definitely not for you. This is just a reading guide of trade collections as you find them. So that's all the corrections and addendum I think I'm going to make here to this reading guide. In the months and years to come, no doubt as new things are solicited and maybe other small mistakes will be discovered in the videos, I won't be returning to the series to do any updates or further corrections. Whilst I have done some emergency corrections, like creating video 5.7 off the hoof when I spotted an omission, I think that after 31 videos and around 15 hours of content on this, I've done as much as I can do, and really as much as most people would probably want. And now, before I finish, well, how could I possibly finish a video series on the New 52 without mentioning the next part of the DC universe, DC Rebirth? The first thing for me to point out here is that this is totally unrelated to Green Lantern Rebirth from 2005 and to Flash Rebirth from 2009. But what is DC Rebirth? Well, DC Rebirth is not a clean reboot like the New 52 was, but it sort of is. Let me explain. Let's start with our New 52 map. This is the simple, clean version you can download from my website. Well, to start with, let's swap that with the one we've been using for these videos, eh? So this is the one I have. It looks a bit nice, it's a bit more interesting. So we read the New 52, and then DC Rebirth happens. That's signified by this red line separating the New 52 and DC Rebirth. Instead of that red line, you may be more familiar with the one-shot here. Or you might even be interested in the DC Rebirth Omnibus here. There's actually 2 versions of this, but I guess that's something to talk about another time. Now with DC Rebirth, all the series from the New 52 were cancelled. Many were restarted with new numbering, some were never restarted, and several whole new series were kicked off from scratch. Now that probably sounds a lot like the New 52, however, and this is the important thing, it was all built directly on top of the events of the New 52 continuity. It was all thematically refreshed, but it all built on what had gone before. It didn't scrap any of the older stories at all from 2011 onwards. Now, I've read a little bit of DC Rebirth, but I've only really dipped my toe into it. What I will say is that I think of it like this. It's like the second phase of the New 52. So let's say you start with Flashpoint, you go through my reading map radiating outwards throughout the New 52, and then you get to DC Rebirth, which is that red line here, and that's the DC Rebirth event. Imagine this map was to continue radiating outwards. This second line here is the event Dark Knight's Metal. I haven't read Dark Knight's Metal yet, but I gather it's a big deal and causes quite a shift to the comic universe. And I suspect, and this is me literally just guessing and speculating here, that the DC Rebirth and DC Universe era will end quite definitively with the final release of Doomsday Clock and the end of that series. Why do I say that, and what would be after that? Well, DC are currently babbling on about some nonsense to do with the 5th generation of comics and their continuity timeline. Here's an image of it. But I'm basically quite sceptical for various reasons. Time will tell, I guess. If you do fancy knowing a bit more about DC Rebirth or collecting the Rebirth comics as hardcovers, they have a beautiful house style of these deluxe hardcovers, which look amazing. I'll add a link to the description below to a great video overview of the Rebirth Deluxe line by name and condition. But anyway, back to the New 52. What are my overall thoughts? Well, despite its many, many failings, I think the New 52 is a great jumping on point for new readers to DC Comics. It has some great stories, some great art, some great events, and is largely available in a really pleasing and coordinated format across over 600 different trade collections. Yes, it makes mistakes, lots and lots of them, but it also represents a tidy and closed universe that arms brand new readers with the tools to start broadening out into the frankly incomprehensible world of DC Comics before 2011. Hope you all found it useful to go on this journey with me around this little map I made, and I really appreciate the support. In terms of what happens next, I'm not sure. This channel will probably revert back to its usual content of custom binds and custom comics, with the occasional other random comic related video. I've always made a point of doing content that is not available elsewhere on YouTube, so you won't see comic reviews here on this channel, or haul videos, or library tours, nor are you going to see reading guides for stuff like X-Men or Batman. Other channels do those, and do them very, very well indeed. However, I would like to maybe do another comic universe map, as this one was actually quite fun, and no one else online seems to have really done them in this way. In terms of that, I previously did a collector's guide for Marvel Noir, which I'll link to in the description below. That was a very small first attempt at a reading map, as the Marvel Noir universe only contains 41 single issues. And then my second and only other reading map was this one, which was a bit too ambitious to be honest. The New 52 contained 3,646 single issues, but this was still a lot of fun to do. So where next? Well, let's think about some other closed universes, and by that I mean comics universes which have a very clear endpoint to offer the reader some kind of closure and to give you some perspective on how things fit together. I'm keen to start reading the Wildstorm universe. For those of you that watched the new Storm videos that I had, the Wildstorm is what preceded that, and between 1992 to 2010 the Wildstorm actually ran for around about 1,400 issues, and I think I now have all of these in single issues, all the way up to its relaunch in the New 52. There's The End, which is a series by Marvel. This is much smaller, at only 47 issues scattered across various lines. There is of course Ultimate Marvel. That universe is now over since Secret Wars 2015, but that has 747 single issues, which I have. I've read most of them, and I'm quite interested in putting it together in a map. I'm very excited by what I call the Artifactiverse. This is a line of Top Cow comics that centre around the Witchblade comic from the 90s. As such, it includes lines like the Darkness, the Angelus, the Magdalena, and of course Artifacts. I'm aware Witchblade has rebooted very recently, but I wouldn't include that in this. I suspect, I feel that the Artifactiverse basically wraps up into one closed loop before that very recent 2018-2019 Witchblade reboot. I hope it does anyway. I have all the single issues here, totaling 630 single issues, give or take. There is of course Marvel 2099, which contains 329 issues, not including the post-Secret Wars relaunch, obviously. Speaking of Secret Wars, Jonathan Hickman's 2015 event contained 46 spin-off series to the main Secret Wars core series, each of which is between 3 and 5 issues long. Is anyone out there interested in a reading order of these things? I know that Jess Bragg over at Omnidog's Vault did kind of a reading review series of these for a while, but that's not quite what I'm talking about. I've almost finished rereading them all, and I find that I don't really find the official separation of these into War Zones collections and Battleworld collections to be very helpful. I actually find quite a lot of different distinctions between them, but still nonetheless some groups that I think would be interesting to share. Are you guys interested? Let me know. I've also recently reread the entire Crossed universe from Avatar Comics. That contains 329 issues. Is anyone interested in this, and would anyone like to know where it all fits in together? And then Robert Kirkman recently finished his amazing 144 issue run in Invincible. I'm aware that that would seem a really straightforward reading order from 1 to 144, but I'm keen to do a full reading order of what I call the Kirkmaniverse, and that would include all the spin-off series such as Invincible Universe, Astounding Wolfman, Capes, Brit, things that you may not have heard of, and that's a total of around 220-ish issues. Of course, there's a temptation for me to also tackle some open universes. By open universe, I mean ones where issues in that universe are still being released. So there's really not a clear end point for me to know when to stop, to be honest. Personally, I find the idea of where to start and how to read Hellboy is a bit confusing and daunting. I've got around, I think, 80 or 90% of the issues in trades for it, so I might need to give it a try, but I really don't know even where to begin. Now, admittedly, Spawn started life with a whole host of spin-offs and side series, loads of them. Again, I have those in single issues, but it's been a single clear series for the best part of a decade now. We're looking at just under 500 issues in total there. Now, I currently own every single Valiant Deluxe Edition hardcover. In fact, I was inspired to get into Valiant by a great series from Gem Mint Collectibles, where he read and reviewed every single deluxe edition in a 9-part series, and I'll link to that in the description below. He used a particular reading map, which I'm showing you here, and I was about to start the read-through when I discovered that there is a substantial amount of modern Valiant that isn't collected in the deluxe hardcover editions. I know, the sense of betrayal, right? So whilst I'm still in the process of collecting the non-deluxe single issues and trades, the orphaned issues which haven't been collected in the deluxes, basically, I'm kind of guessing the Valiant universe is around 630-ish single issues right now. I don't know, but I'm kind of keen to jump into it once I get my head wrapped around it. Speaking of wrapping my head around stuff, another universe is a bit of a nightmare is the one by Zenescope Comics. I have no idea how many series they have or what's going on, as all their lines have very similar names and literally millions of variant covers. It's ridiculous. I currently have around maybe 300 issues of Zenescope, I think. Maybe they're all 300 of the same issue and they're all just variant covers, who knows. And I've no idea how much of the whole publishing history that represents, so frankly I don't even know where to begin. But is anyone interested? Let me know. And finally, of course, yes, I know if you're watching this you're almost certainly a DC fanboy and you're probably after a read-through for the biggest ongoing universe of all, DC Rebirth. There's around 1,800 issues, of which I have almost all of them, and I also have almost all the deluxe Rebirth hardcovers, the deluxe editions there. Would you be interested in seeing me build a map for another comics universe? And if so, which one? Let me know in the comments below. I'd be curious to hear your opinions. I'm not saying I'm going to listen to them, but I'd be curious to hear them. And with that, it's left to me to say goodbye. That's it forever. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video series. As always, please like, comment, subscribe, and share more widely. As always, feel free to tweet me at IamThomasJudge. And remember, this channel is only possible thanks to supporting it by heading over to Amazon.com and picking up the first episode of my prose novel No Gods or Kings, available for less than $1. It's a series of interviews from a future where superpowers are real, and the entire world has changed dramatically as a result. If you have Kindle Unlimited, the first volume is completely free anyway. Just to do even more of a plug, please leave a review of the books too. Promoting them really is the only reason this channel exists at all. So I'd be really grateful if you could help me out. Remember, I don't have a Patreon, I don't have a Kickstarter, I don't accept YouTube Super Chats or PayPal or anything like that. All I'm after are just positive reviews and spreading the word of the novel series. If you're interested in reading a free excerpt of that, that's available on the website, which is also where you can download this map infographic of the DC New 52. And that website is nogodsorkings.com. So whilst you're there, why not pick up the first book and support the channel? Until next time, guys, which will be 2020 sometime, who knows when that'll be, stay classic.